Today we're diving into one of the most exciting moments in modern Linux history. A moment where long-running debates are finally settling. Futuristic ideas are becoming practical tools, and Linux on the desktop is no longer a niche curiosity but a serious, evolving platform. This is a story about momentum. It's about Wayland steadily becoming the new normal. Artificial intelligence quietly slipping into the Linux terminal. And SteamOS transforming Linux gaming from surprisingly good into genuinely competitive. All of this is happening at once, and together, it paints a picture of a Linux ecosystem that is more confident, more polished, and more ambitious than ever before. For years, Linux desktop progress felt slow and fragmented. There were brilliant developers, powerful ideas, and passionate communities. But there was also a sense of being stuck in eternal transition. The X11 display server was aging but still dominant. AI tools existed, but they felt bolted on, experimental, or locked behind cloud services that didn't respect user control. Gaming on Linux worked, but often required patience, tinkering, and a willingness to accept compromise. What makes the current moment different is that multiple long-term efforts are finally converging into something cohesive. Linux is not just experimenting anymore. It's maturing. Let's start with Wayland. Because Wayland's growth represents one of the most fundamental shifts in how Linux desktops actually work. Wayland isn't new. It has been discussed, developed, and debated for more than a decade. For a long time, it was the future that never quite arrived. Users heard about it. Distributions offered it as an option, but many people stayed on X11 because it felt safer, more compatible, and less likely to break their workflow. That hesitation is now fading, and the reasons why tell us a lot about how Linux itself is changing. The original X11 architecture was designed in a completely different era of computing. It came from a time when networked terminals were common, GPUs were simple, and security threats looked nothing like they do today. Over time, X11 became bloated with extensions, workarounds, and compatibility layers. It worked, but it was fragile. Applications could snoop on each other's input. Screen tearing fixes required complex compositing setups. Touch input, high DPI displays, and modern graphics pipelines all felt like afterthoughts rather than core features. Wayland flips this approach. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, Wayland focuses on being simple, secure, and efficient at its core. Applications talk more directly to the compositor. Input is isolated. Rendering is cleaner. In theory, this has always been better. In practice, the challenge was getting real-world desktops and real-world applications to fully support it. What's changed recently is not just technical maturity, but confidence. Major desktop environments like GNOME have already made Wayland the default, and KDE Plasma is now doing the same with far more polish than in earlier attempts. The rough edges that once pushed users back to X11 are gradually disappearing. Fractional scaling works better. Multi-monitor setups are more reliable. Screen sharing and remote desktop, once a major pain point, are now supported through modern protocols like Pipewire that are designed with Wayland in mind. Another key factor is application support. Toolkits like GTK and Qt now treat Wayland as a first-class citizen rather than a second-class experiment. Popular apps, including browsers, IDEs, and creative tools, are tested and optimized for Wayland sessions. Even proprietary software, historically slow to adapt, is starting to catch up because the user base is there and growing. Security is one of the most underappreciated aspects of Wayland's rise. On X11, any application could potentially capture keystrokes or screenshots from other apps. That was simply how the system worked. Wayland's stricter isolation model prevents this by default. For a world where phishing, keylogging, and malicious extensions are real concerns, this is a massive improvement. Linux desktops are no longer just powerful. They're becoming safer in ways that are deeply integrated, rather than patched on later. The Wayland transition also symbolizes a broader shift in Linux culture. For years, there was a tendency to keep legacy systems alive indefinitely in the name of compatibility. While that approach has value, it can also hold progress back. Wayland shows that the Linux community is increasingly willing to say, "This is better, and we're moving forward," even if it means some short-term discomfort. That confidence is essential for long-term growth. While the graphical side of Linux is evolving, something equally interesting is happening in the terminal. the very heart of the Linux experience. The terminal has always been a place of power, precision, and sometimes intimidation. It's where advanced users feel at home, and beginners often feel lost. Now, artificial intelligence is quietly changing that dynamic in a way that feels surprisingly natural. For a long time, AI on Linux meant big frameworks, Python scripts, and GPU-heavy workloads. It was something you installed separately, configured carefully, and used for specific tasks, like image generation or data analysis. What's new is the idea of AI as a companion inside the terminal itself, assisting rather than replacing the traditional command line workflow. Imagine typing a vague request, like "find large files, I don't need anymore," and having an AI-powered tool translate that intent into a precise, safe command. Or asking, "Why did this service fail to start?" and getting a contextual explanation based on logs, system state, and common configuration issues. This isn't science fiction anymore. Tools are emerging that integrate local language models directly into shell environments, respecting user privacy by running on-device instead of sending data to the cloud. This matters because the terminal is already a language. It's a language of commands, flags, pipes, and scripts. AI doesn't replace that language. It helps interpret it. For newcomers, this can dramatically lower the barrier to entry. For experienced users, it can speed up troubleshooting, automate repetitive tasks, and surface insights that would otherwise require manual searching through documentation and forums. One of the most important aspects of this trend is that it aligns perfectly with Linux values. Instead of proprietary opaque AI assistants that collect data and lock users into ecosystems, many Linux AI terminal tools are open source, customizable, and transparent. Users can choose which model to run, how much system resource it can use, and what data it can access. This is AI on the user's terms, not the other way around. There's also a philosophical resonance here. The Unix philosophy has always emphasized small tools that do one thing well, and can be combined in powerful ways. AI-enhanced terminal tools don't abandon that philosophy, they extend it. An AI helper can generate a command, but the command itself is still visible, editable, and scriptable. The user remains in control. This is not about replacing human understanding, but augmenting it. As local AI models become more efficient, this integration will only deepen. We're likely to see AI-aware shells that understand project context, system history, and user preferences. Debugging, system administration, and development could all become more conversational without losing precision. The terminal remains the backbone, but it becomes more approachable and more powerful at the same time. While Wayland reshapes the desktop and AI transforms the terminal, gaming on Linux is undergoing its own quiet revolution, and SteamOS is at the center of it. For many years, Linux gaming was defined by what it lacked. Fewer native titles, driver issues, performance gaps, and complicated setup processes were all common complaints. That narrative is rapidly becoming outdated. SteamOS represents a focused vision of Linux optimized specifically for gaming. It's not a general-purpose desktop first. It's a console-like experience built on Linux foundations. The success of the Steam Deck proved that this approach works. Suddenly, millions of users were running Linux without even realizing it, playing modern AAA games with impressive performance and minimal hassle. What's happening now is that SteamOS is leveling up in ways that benefit the entire Linux ecosystem. Improvements in Proton, Valve's compatibility layer based on Wine, have reached a point where many Windows-only games run as well or better on Linux than they do on Windows. Shader pre-catching reduces stutter. Controller support is seamless. Anti-cheat compatibility, once a major barrier, is steadily improving as more developers cooperate. SteamOS also pushes advancements in drivers, kernels, and system optimization that flow back into mainstream distributions. Valve works closely with hardware vendors and open-source developers to ensure that performance fixes, power management improvements, and graphics enhancements are upstreamed. This means that even if you never touch SteamOS, you benefit from its existence. Another important aspect is user perception. For a long time, Linux gaming required a certain mindset. You had to be willing to troubleshoot, tweak settings, and accept that some games simply wouldn't work. SteamOS changes that expectation. It presents Linux as a platform where gaming is the primary goal, not an afterthought. That shift in perception attracts new users, developers, and investment. The rise of handheld gaming PCs has amplified this effect. Devices inspired by the Steam Deck often ship with Linux-based systems, or offer Linux as a first-class option. This creates a feedback loop, where hardware, software, and users reinforce each other. Linux is no longer just keeping up. It's helping define a new category of gaming devices. What ties Wayland AI and the terminal, and SteamOS together, is not just timing, but philosophy. All three represent a move toward intentional design. Instead of endlessly patching old systems, the Linux community is increasingly willing to rethink fundamentals. Instead of treating AI as a gimmick, it's being integrated in ways that respect user control. Instead of apologizing for gaming limitations, Linux is asserting itself as a viable, even attractive, gaming platform. This moment also highlights the strength of open-source collaboration. Wayland succeeded not because one company forced it through, but because multiple projects aligned over time. AI terminal tools are flourishing because developers share models, libraries, and ideas openly. SteamOS thrives because Valve invests heavily in open technologies rather than locking everything behind proprietary walls. Of course, challenges remain. Not every application works perfectly on Wayland yet. AI tools can still hallucinate or misinterpret intent. Some games and anti-cheat systems remain incompatible with Linux, but the difference now is momentum. Problems feel temporary rather than fundamental. The direction is clear, and progress is visible. For users, this means choice without compromise. You can run a modern, secure desktop that feels smooth and responsive. You can use AI assistants without sacrificing privacy. You can play demanding games on Linux without feeling like a second-class citizen. For developers, it means a stable, evolving platform that rewards investment. For the broader tech world, it means Linux continues to influence computing far beyond its traditional boundaries. We are witnessing Linux grow into itself. It's no longer defined by what it opposes or what it lacks. It's defined by what it builds and how it builds it. Wayland's rise shows that deep technical debt can be addressed. AI in the terminal shows that even the most traditional interfaces can evolve. SteamOS leveling up shows that Linux can compete in spaces once thought unreachable. If you step back and look at the bigger picture, this isn't just Linux news. It's a glimpse into a future where computing is more transparent, more user-respecting, and more adaptable. A future where powerful tools don't have to be locked behind closed systems. A future where progress doesn't mean abandoning principles. And that's what makes this moment so exciting. Linux isn't chasing trends anymore. In many ways, it's setting them.